Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Kay Tracy, the Director of the Charlotte County Economic Development Office. And before we begin, I'd like to briefly recognize the Economic Development team here in Charlotte County. Christy Sisler, who is our Business Recruitment Manager. She is our Emergency Management Liaison out of our office and is the organizer of today's webinar. We have Maria Vastola, our marketing manager and technical guru. She makes everything happen here technically. Thank you, Maria. We have Mark Odell, our business retention and expansion manager, Janet Johnson, our executive assistant, and Jordan Ray, our data specialist. Thank you all for your hard work in putting this presentation together today. I'm also pleased to welcome our co-host, Bob White, with the Charlotte County Chamber. We have Sean McLaughlin. He is with the Punta Gorda Chamber, and Kim Parks with the Inglewood Chamber. We appreciate your time and your interest. So let's get started. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. We are using Microsoft Teams today, so please keep your microphones muted, and you can submit any questions that you have in the chat feature, and we'll address them during the question and answer session at the end if the time allows. Okay, so for our first speaker, we have Patrick Fuller. He is the Emergency Management Director for Charlotte County, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. He's also a Florida State University alum. He has been recognized with the Bob Lay Emergency Management Award for his leadership in hurricane preparedness. And just as a fun fact, we stuck this in, Patrick, I hope you don't mind. After being selected as a hometown hero for his service, Patrick is one of only 10 civilians who have had the honor to fly with the Thunderbirds Delta Formation. So congratulations with that. And Patrick, take it away.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Economic Development team. I appreciate you having me today. I'm going to keep my camera off if it's okay. I'm actually doing this from my vehicle using a hotspot, so I don't want to tempt fate by increasing the bandwidth. Just to kick it off, I think everyone's probably had a chance to see the Colorado State University seasonal forecast. They'll do this multiple times with updates throughout the hurricane season. But their initial forecast is indicating a slightly below average season. There's a number of factors that go into play with that, but primarily the potential for a strong El Nino, which could inhibit some tropical development in the Atlantic Basin, is the primary reason. Their prediction is for 13 named storms, 6 hurricanes, 2 of which would be major hurricanes, so that means category 3 or higher. Now, I want you to forget all of that because that doesn't really matter. It just takes that one storm impacting us for it to be an incredibly bad year for us. Just take, for instance, 1992 with Hurricane Andrew was a strong El Nino year, extremely below average year, and it took one storm that devastated Miami-Dade County and several other areas, really for how emergency response has changed because of that. So forget the seasonal forecast. We prepare the same way each year regardless of that. Next slide, please. So as you know, we've all seen those striking statistics of the low probability for reopening businesses for the longer it takes for you to reopen post-disaster. And I think everybody here knows that, having a business continuity plan, a disaster plan in place is how you help to mitigate that and reduce the low probability as much as you possibly can. I know several of your other speakers are probably going to speak more to the business continuity side of it. I will say that in Charlotte County Emergency Management, we are putting together a business disaster plan template that we're going to work with community or economic development to help get out to everybody working through the chambers. It's really a basic template for businesses to work off of and expand from, but it's at least a starting place. But what I really want to talk about today is the single most important thing you can do to help your employees in their disaster preparedness journey, and acknowledging that you can't do what you do as a business without the work of your employees. And the best way that they can be available to you and available to work is by them developing their own household and individual disaster preparedness plans. The reason why we have to be prepared every year is the extreme vulnerability we have to hurricanes and tropical storms here in Southwest Florida. That colorful graphic there with the map of Charlotte County on the right-hand side of your screen are our hurricane evacuation zones. Those are due to storm surge. Southwest Florida, Charlotte County especially, is incredibly vulnerable to storm surge. We were very lucky for many, many years until 2024. We hadn't experienced a considerable storm surge event until Hurricanes Helene and Milton impacted us 10 days apart in September and October of 2024. Those were moderate storm surge events. Storm surge is the number one killer when it comes to the direct impacts of tropical storms and hurricanes. So storm surge is why we do evacuations for the most part, with a few minor exceptions. It's why it's so critical for our population, our employees, to remain prepared. So I want everybody to keep that in mind. Hurricane Milton was the big storm surge event. Charlotte County received the peak storm surge from that storm, and we're still only talking about 10.5 feet at our beaches, 5 to 8 feet within the harbor, and that's moderate. It could be worse. So most things we do to prepare our residents has to do with storm surge, and that's why it's so critical that our residents, our employees, develop their plans and do the things they need to do to be prepared and resilient going forward. So next slide. So our preparedness message doesn't change drastically from year to year. It's really a 4-step process that we highlight each and every year. We try to get out in front of as many people as possible. We like to use large organizations as force multipliers. Get the message out there. We've probably had more than 10,000 new residents in Charlotte County since Hurricane Milton impacted us in October of 2024. That's 10,000 people that are very likely have never been through a hurricane season. So even if they've been here for 40 or 50 years, or if it's their first year dealing with hurricane season, the same message holds true. The first step is understanding the risk. For us, it's knowing your evacuation zone, and also knowing your home. I said that most of our evacuations have to do with that threat of storm surge. The exception to that is for high wind events in mobile homes, manufactured homes, or homes built before our modern building codes that aren't able to sustain structural integrity during high wind events. Those are the exceptions. So knowing your evacuation zone, there's a number of ways to do that. They can go into our website in emergency management, type in their address at the Know Your Zone section. It'll tell them exactly what hurricane evacuation zone they're in. We also have continued on with the stop sign collar program. Every stop sign in the county has a colored collar, also with a letter. That letter coincides with the color. So red zone is A, orange zone is B, so forth and so on. It's a quick identifier for those individuals who may not be as internet savvy and willing to go on and check their evacuation zone. That's how we communicate who's being evacuated. So it's critical everybody knows their zone, but also understands the limitations or strength of their home. That second step is making a plan. I always use myself as an example. I am zero help to my family about 4 days before a storm, and then an indefinite period after a storm. So I have to work with my family each and every year, and unfortunately, we practice this in the real world on a number of occasions, and build a plan so they know what they need to do in the days leading up to a potential storm, during a storm, and afterwards. They know exactly what supplies to bring with them, what special pet supplies, what things they need for my 2 children, and they know where to go. I live in a red zone, the first area that we call for evacuations. They have a place to go outside of most likely evacuation scenarios, and it's a safe, modern structure. They know how to communicate with me and what to do if they can't communicate with me. And they know when to stay off the roads post-disaster and when it's safe to come out. That level of detailed planning is really what everyone in the county should be doing. For some of us, we are going to have before, during, and after responsibilities for our employment. But for many of us, there's going to be portions where we need to look after our homes, look after our families. And by doing that, our employees are more capable to get back to the work site, to the business, to ensure continuity of operations. After they've made that plan, they need to build a kit. It used to be in years past, we used to say, have 3 days worth of food, water, and any other supplies you need to sustain yourself. We've done away with that 3 days. It's 5 to 7 days. That has everything to do with the frequency of these major disasters that we're seeing nationwide, especially in the Southeast U.S. We are experiencing more of these major hurricanes, especially in the Gulf. The supply chain doesn't always catch up. You know that as business owners. The federal government, it may take them a while to respond. The state government may take them a while, especially if you're seeing multiple disasters occurring within a short amount of time. Having 5 to 7 days worth of disaster supplies so that you limit your need to go on the roads when it's potentially dangerous, to go out and try to get additional supplies when there may not be stores open. 5 to 7 days is the rule of thumb, and that includes 1 gallon of water per person per day, food for 5 to 7 days, pet food, medications, all those things you need for 5 to 7 days to get you through. That allows time for the supply chain and the federal and state apparatus of response to catch up. And lastly, stay informed. Right now, you're taking a great step by participating in this webinar, but throughout the season, don't forget to check in. Unfortunately, after every storm we have, we get calls in the weeks and months after stating that they had no idea that there was a storm out there. There, a select group of our residents just unplugged during hurricane season, and that's a very dangerous thing to do. Stay abreast of local conditions, know what's going on throughout hurricane season. June 1st through November 30th is not the time to tune out and not pay attention to what's happening in the tropics. Charlotte County social media accounts, our website, all of our partners, we send out volumes of information in the days leading up to, during, and after a storm. Staying informed is the best way to make those decisions that could potentially save lives or even mitigate against damage. We have a great tool called Alert Charlotte, which is a no-cost emergency notification system that's paid for by the state of Florida. All residents, all individuals in Charlotte County can sign up. All they need to do is plug in their address, and that lets us get access to them, give us a phone number and email address to get in touch with them, so that when we're making critical protective action decisions like evacuation notices, we can touch that person via phone call, email, or text message. Alert Charlotte's a great tool, and I hope that one day we get close to 100% registration throughout the county. And lastly, just as a business owner, we see this time and again after our numerous disasters. Unfortunately, we have the unfortunate reputation of having disasters quite frequently over the past 10 years. You see time and again, you as business owners, as business operators, looking after your employees. I applaud you for that, and I encourage it for future disasters. Sometimes there isn't accessibility to fuel. What can you do to help your employees have access to fuel after a disaster so that they can take care of their families, but also report to work and get the business operating and back on its feet? Things like that, access to food, access to water. What can you do as a business owner to help your employees? Part of that is providing them resources and ahead of hurricane season, how they prepare. And that goes into my next slide. We produce the Charlotte County Disaster Guide. It's available at our libraries in printed format, also a PDF at that link there. This really is a quite comprehensive resource for anyone in Charlotte County, business owners, employees, visitors even, of things they need to take into account, how they build a plan, and resources that are available to them. I highly recommend that. There's also the FEMA-ready.org site. And for post-disaster, we also partner with our nonprofits throughout the community in the form of the Charlotte County Community Organizations After Disaster, or Active in Disasters. Those nonprofits work together to address the unmet needs of our community with our help and coordination and access to resources. So can't say enough about that organization. They've certainly matured over time. And I know I had a 10-minute quick window, so I'll wrap it up there, and I guess we'll get questions towards the end. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And now we're on to the next one.
Okay, well, it is my pleasure to not only introduce a colleague of mine, but a very, very close friend. Angie Matheson serves as the CEO of the United Way of Charlotte County since 2014. Bring more than 20 years of experience working in pediatric oncology, maternal child health, and community health. A Florida native with a master's of social work from the University of Georgia, Angie is actively engaged in our community and lives in Punta Gorda with her husband, Brett, and daughter, Leah. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you guys, Kay and team, for allowing me to speak today, and I appreciate everyone. I'm going to go quickly through our slides. You will be able to see the slides on the economic development page as well as our website. Next slide, please. So at United Way Charlotte County, we believe every community deserves a chance to thrive, and we have, since Ian, we have worked really hard to make sure that we're there to respond. And everyone learned a lot starting with Ian, and we learned what are the resources that we need internally to be able to support our community, and that has really centered around the workforce and employees, and really look at a lot of models with Publix, Fawcett, the school system, the county, and they do an excellent job. And so there's a lot to learn from those businesses and how they help their employees. Next slide, please. Reiterating a lot of what Patrick was saying, and it's really now and in between storms where you really want to be looking at the vulnerability of your workforce, having conversations around, what would be a challenge for you if a storm hits. Knowing those vulnerabilities of your employees is everything. I do highly recommend having a live smart sheet, if you will, where your employees are already listed, so you can kind of be able to list what their needs are post-storm. Go ahead and create a wealth of gift cards and gas cards, things like that, items and supplies that they might need, that it's harder for them to get to. They might have an easier time getting it from you. Certainly, you can create an employee hardship fund. There are other entities in the community that have that, and we'll talk about that in a second. Next slide, please. We absolutely, we reiterate it in our minds. We're always thinking before, during, and after as well. And the website that you would go to look at our resources is down on the bottom right of this slide. Next slide, please. We work in close conjunction with 211. The United Way Lee County manages the 211 helpline for Charlotte County. And during a storm, that really is a resource. Well, it's prior to the storm, letting everyone know that 211 is a resource for our community right now. And it can be an offset to kind of take some of the burden off of the Emergency Operations Center for the other seems like every problem is going to happen during a storm, and it may not always be related to a storm or to the storm needs. And so the 211 call line is there, and they can make sure people get to the Emergency Operations Center line as well. So just know 211 is a resource in Charlotte County. And next slide, please. This slide is just a compilation of a little bit about how together we can thrive. I want to really talk on the next slide. And we will always be on our social media pages referring to the emergency operations communications that are out there. We will be collecting gift cards. That is the specific item that we collect, because we help get that out to our employees in addition to our disaster fund. So we do have a United at Work disaster fund, and there is a link for people to be familiar with, so you can refer your employees to it. And it does help with a lot of immediate financial needs, maybe getting someone caught up with their mortgage, because a lot of times people move behind on their mortgage, and that prevents them from being able to do the other repairs that they need. We also will be funding doing disaster funds with our nonprofit partners as well. And you can see a list of our other partners. I am, to my time and being respectful of everyone, would like to say the next slide will just be an emphasis of the another summary on the next slide of some of the items that we can help with. We obviously have our phone number, our website, and then these resources will be available as a follow-up to this webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. Okay, next is Sean.
Hi, everybody. It's my honor to introduce Dr. Kimberly Perry, who serves as the Emergency Coordination Officer for Florida Commerce. and is the ESF 18 lead at the State Emergency Operations Center. A retired U.S. Navy chief, Dr. Perry brings a rare blend of military leadership, emergency response, coordination, and scientific expertise as a PhD in geophysical oceanography, making her a vital voice in how Florida supports businesses before, during, and after major events. Joining Kim is Stephen Wood, the alternate emergency coordination officer with Florida Commerce State Emergency Operations Center, serving in the Office of Communications and External Affairs. A Navy veteran with an MBA from Jacksonville University, go Dolphins, Stephen plays a key role in ensuring clear, timely communication and coordination when it matters most.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that, Sean. I appreciate it. I will just say this is always the key thing for Steve and I, as both Navy veterans, where I am the lead in now our civilian jobs. Steve was a commander, much higher ranking than I am. So he's a retired officer. I was just a low-key chief. So just throwing that out there. Just for the start, we do represent Florida Commerce. But Florida Commerce is the lead agency that sits with another 6 agencies during a disaster in the Emergency Support Function 18 at the State Emergency Operations Center. So with that, that puts both Steve and I as the ESF 18 lead and alternate lead. So we run point for all of our businesses and for the economy and the stabilization of the state during, before, and after the disaster. So a few of the agencies, as you can see on this slide, obviously for us, for Florida Commerce, Department of Business and Professional Regulation, DBPR, you'll have to forgive our acronyms. That's another holdover from the Navy. Department of Revenue, Department of Financial Services, and a few others that sit with us, including now we have a permanent fixture from the Chamber of Commerce for this area. We do collaborate very heavily with our industry organizations, Florida Restaurant and Lodging, FRLA, as well as Florida Retail Federation and Visit, SBDC, and then several more that work with us every day that we're activated that will come and sit in that ESF 18 office. Next slide, please. So this, as part of the State Emergency Response Team, again, we are ESF 18. These are just a list. I won't go through them all, as I know the time is limited here, but gives you a kind of a breakdown what all the other ESFs do. Just really quick, since you'll have access to the slide if you need them, you can keep those for your well-being and self-care. We do interact with pretty much everybody. Looking at it really quick, everybody on this list, we have some involvement because, as we all know, even though we are involved in business and industry, all those business and industry owners are also our Floridians and civilians in the state. Next slide, please. So our objectives are pretty clear. We coordinate, collaborate, and communicate with our community stakeholders for what we believe and what we can do as a resilient Florida. During the rest of the year, when we are not activated in the state EOC, we are actively engaged in educating and training our communities, in our business communities, city, county, economic organizations. Steve and I have been traveling, I think, nonstop since January. So we are constantly on the go. We don't have a separate blue sky job like some of our other ESFs. We are just constantly, in that ESF mode when we're activated, and then quickly into a recovery response mode for about 3 or 4 months where we work hand in hand with FEMA, and then we go on to training. So there is no downtime for us. We're always here to help, and so it's never a bother to reach out to us because we are continually doing this type of work for the state all year long. Next slide, please. So here's some of the responding events, just our natural hazards, obviously technological and human cause. Last year, we had to laugh about putting in that bullet point under natural hazards for winter storm, because that was the first winter storm that I was ever activated for, and quickly learned that the state of Florida does not carry salt in their warehouses. We do now, because we could not get salt anywhere because all of our corresponding regional states and FEMA also have the same snow issue. So it's always changing, always, alternating. I believe, like Director Fuller said, you never know what's going to happen. It could just be the one for the winter storm. It just happened to be snow that year. So we're hoping that we don't have to do with that for a couple of years, but you never know. Next slide, please. So for us, we are the recovery, but we're also that initial response. For now, on the meteorological side and the oceanographic side, we can pretty much determine whether the state or not is going to have some kind of event, whether it's a hurricane or just the effects from a hurricane, about 10 days out. 7 days, we're pretty tight into where it's going to come. But if any of you had worked through Helene, which most of you on this panel I see have, it could change in the last 2 hours. We were all expecting it to come to the Big Bend, and it shifted in those last 2 hours. But in that time frame beforehand, we are actively engaged with our private sector, with both our networks, federal, local, and the state and county. We do a rapid email response. We do a private sector phone call every day up until that point, and those two things will stay with us all the way up until that long-term recovery list. So what we do ask is when we either meet a new partner, meet a new business, whether small or large, is that you connect with us on our email distribution list. So you would get those information that we have that we can tell you, hey, this is what we're looking at. Obviously, any quick event, whether it's tornadic or man-made, we wouldn't be able to do that as quickly. But after the fact, we would still be on the call within 24 hours, giving you all the information that we have. So for the easiest way for us to include you in those calls is to go on that distribution list. We do have, as it's on there, the private sector hotline. I will tell you that rings into the EOC. There currently isn't anybody sitting in there. We're trying to be in there about once or twice a week. But I believe at the last slide does have our contact information. And then just a figure of note, the floridadisaster.biz, that is actually our website, what we call our Business Emergency Operations Center. If you happen to type in .org, it will take you to the Florida Division of Emergencies Division's webpage. But if you click the business tab on the top, it will take you there. So just it happens to be something that people get a little confused with. I totally get it. I do forget it half the time as myself. So just put it out there. We are reachable very often, pretty much all the time, all year long. Next slide, please. So for most of the people on our ESF 18 team with our other state agencies, like myself, they're emergency coordination officers or the alternate that have been appointed from the governor's office across the street. They have been in the business for many, many years, whether it's a private sector or now public sector. We do all of, there you go. That's perfect. It's a little crooked, but that's okay. So we work making sure that we have all of our leadership and then, those experts that can reach back out to you. So for the Department of Revenue, those are the leaders that know, when the money is going to shut down. For Department of Management Services, they are our contact to let us know when state and county businesses are going to be closed if they're ran by DMS. So we try to make sure that we're involved all the time at, from that response stage to that recovery stage. Again, we deal with everything from, marketing organizations, now our chambers of commerce who sit with us, all of our major employers. That could be anywhere from Publix to Walmart to Boeing or Amazon. And then again, with all of our small businesses, whether it's a 2 to 3 person business or, up to 200, I believe is the cutoff. So we're heavily involved. If you have not reached out to us, please do so. We would love to add you into our team. Next slide, please. This gives us a little bit more information about our website. We did have a QR code. It's not following on the slide for some reason. That's our fault, not yours. So floridadisaster.biz, like I said, is our BEOC. We have on the site, some of these are only activated during a disaster, but most of them you can access, like the disaster planning toolkit. We do put state reentry procedures on there as those go through our office for businesses to come back in, as well as evacuations, curfews, road closures that we work heavily with ESF1 for Department of Transportation. And then we do try to list all of our county contact information, just so our businesses have those. We try to keep it as updated as much as we have those. So if there's a county contact on there that may not be accurate, please reach back out to us and we can find you the correct person. And on one of these bullet points is the recovery resources and information. We do have some resources that Florida Commerce specifically does for our state businesses. And I'm going to hand this slide over to Steve so he can kind of tie it up. We only have a couple more after that. So in lieu of time, I will pass it over to Steve, and thank you.
Thanks, Kim. I wanted to touch base, next slide, please, on some of the resources that Florida Commerce can provide. Thank you. They can provide. The first one you see there is the Florida Business Damage Assessment. This is integral to getting the ball rolling for some of the other programs. So businesses are encouraged, as soon as the storm has passed and it's safe to do so, get on the computer, get on the website, make the entries in there to report how you're impacted by this storm. Did you lose a roof? Did you lose all the product? What have you? And once the governor gets that information, then he can make an assessment and say, okay, we're opening up the emergency bridge loan program, for example. That's that next bullet. The Florida Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan Program is a great program that will give $50,000 interest for zero interest loans, short-term, 1-year loans, to small businesses from between 2 to 100 employees, small businesses. If it's an ag or aquaculture, it's $100K, it's a little more. But that allows them to basically bridge the gap, hence the name, to bridge the gap between getting their insurance or other federal programs, monetary assistance to get them back on their feet. It's a pretty quick turnaround on getting the money in hand to get the ball rolling on the repairs or what have you. For individual employees, the Disaster Unemployment Assistance Program provides a direct weekly payment assistance to the workers if they become unemployed due to a major disaster. Again, just like the bridge loan program, it has to be activated. So that demand signal is the first thing to get going to get the state aware and get the ball rolling on opening up these other revenue streams. The last one here on the screen is a dislocated worker grant. This is a great program that allows temporary disaster relief jobs. Typically, it's either someone's out of work and you can hire them to do debris removal, for example, because their job at the Dollar General went away when the Dollar General got destroyed, but they need to do debris cleanup. And so they can be hired to do debris cleanup. Businesses can hire through this program, can hire individuals because if their employees are not able to come back to work for whatever reason, they evacuated and they're not back, this can be used to help fund those employees. Interesting note: you can actually receive the disaster unemployment assistance, which is a direct check, and the dislocated worker grant if you're receiving training through the worker grant. Because the worker grant is either employment or training. So if you're training for a new vocation, you can receive that training and still receive the direct payment from the unemployment assistance. And it's a modest amount. It's like between $133 and $275 a week, but it definitely it can keep your head above water, if you will. Next slide, please. One thing to be well aware of is obviously any disaster response and recovery is going to start and end at the local level. The state is there to back up the local government and to provide that level of support when city and county resources are beyond that. I will encourage you, though, to put out to local businesses within your cities and counties to do that battle damage. Sorry, Freudian slip there. Business damage assessment, not battle damage assessment, as soon as possible, so that we can get the ball rolling with the state and then ultimately with the federal government. I wanted to circle back to the previous slide. It's not actually on the slide, but one program that's related to it is the Florida Local Government or Small Government Emergency Bridge Loan. That's for small municipalities and small cities and towns that oftentimes get wiped out. And so they need some assistance, not just for the local businesses and their individuals, but for the government itself. For the city hall got trashed. The sheriff's department has lost its roof, things like that. And they may not have the funds right away. And this program is not unlike the small business bridge loan. It is a short-term interest-free loan to the government, but it's significantly higher. There's no cap on it. And awards have gone anywhere from $2 million to I think we had one as high as $25 million to a county. But some cities have got up to words of 10, 12 million. So that is a great tool for counties and cities to be able to dive into. Next slide, please. And I think the next slide is just a Q&A slide. So again, I just want to reinforce it. If nothing else, if you take home nothing else, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so the business damage assessment is the first thing that we need to push so that we can open up the faucet for other support.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen. And Kimberly, thank you so much for your information. Very, very good information. When these types of things happen, it's kind of all hands on deck and we're scrambling. Okay, so who are we supposed to call? So I appreciate your contact information and all the details that you gave us today. Also, I wanted to mention to you that we are a Purple Heart community. I'm not sure if you know that at Florida Commerce, but we appreciate our veterans. So thank you for your service. And Patrick, thank you for your service too. Okay, moving forward, we have Bill Welsh from the Career Source. I believe Kim Parks from Inglewood Chamber is going to be introducing Bill. Take it away, Kim. Is Kim there still? Well, if she isn't, then are you there, Kim?
I don't even need an introduction. No.
Kim, you're on mute. Kim's on mute.
Okay, Kim's on mute. She's coming.
Our sound is not working. I'm sorry, Kim. Kay, can you please?
Sure. I'll introduce Bill.
It's okay,
Bill,
Kim.
everybody deserves an introduction, even though everybody knows you. Today we have Bill Walsh. He is the Business Services Director with Career Source Southwest Florida for over 10 years, with 20 years plus experience in staffing and consulting employment services in Southwest Florida, assisting businesses to grow and prosper since 2001. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you very much, Kay, for the introduction. So, yeah, pretty much Career Source Southwest Florida. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Really, I want to piggyback off of what Kim and Steve were saying from Florida Commerce. They have a wealth of information, and that's where we come into play. So, Career Source Southwest Florida, we are essentially boots on the ground for the state and federal resources that are available to not only businesses but individuals, as well as the counties and cities and the organizations that are in Charlotte County. So we are definitely first on the ground, and we coordinate services through the state and the federal government. We have a lot of because we're tied in with the ecosystem here in Charlotte County. We've got a lot of community resources, and the idea is that we're able to assist with a lot of those programs that Steve and Kim already went over. But essentially, we would be boots on the ground. We'll be first there on to take care of both the businesses as well as individuals with wraparound services and come up with customized solutions. Also, humanitarian aid, we could, once the storm passes and if the employer needs to have assistance with rehiring, if a lot of the individuals have already left, then at that point, we'll definitely be able to have job fairs, hiring events, recruitment efforts on for the employer standpoint. Next slide. So we have a wide range of different services we'd be able to provide. We are really the masters at work-based training grants. So these are just some of the different grants that we would be able to offer before, during, and after our hurricane, really primarily after. But the idea is, once again, we would be able to assist with, Kay was mentioning about Purple Heart County. veteran services, disability. We have disability navigators. They'll be on the boots on the ground, as well as a lot of our work-based training grants that we have from the state and the federal government. Next slide. So the idea would be is that you're going to want to contact us. So yes, you're going to want to get online, but if you don't have access to online, we will have, like I said, we will actually literally have centers open, even a lot of times mobile locations within Charlotte County to be able to assist everybody that's in the county with services. And so the idea is that the phone number there for our Port Charlotte Center is there. But the idea is that we will be the main source to start with. And so that way we're able to go ahead and be the network for the rest of the organizations and resources available, both at the local, state, and federal area. Next slide. That's pretty much it. I'm just trying to make it short and sweet because, once again, we piggyback off of what the Florida Commerce does with Kim and Steve.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that information. Next up, we'll have Christy Sisler. She's going to be introducing our next speaker.
All right, fantastic. I'm super excited about this one. Sue Craig is a business consultant with Small Business Development Center at FGCU. Sue, we're super thankful that you're here today to present. She has been working with business owners for over 30 years, and she's previously a business development officer with Regions Bank for 15 years. So, Sue, take us away. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So we're going to talk a little bit quickly about putting your continuity plan together because we want to show you the need to have one. Next slide. So for those of you that have not worked with the SBDC, basically our purpose is to provide you no-cost consulting. And we do that with a lot of different programs that we offer. We offer the businesses multiple ways for you to achieve sustained success, create jobs and growth for Florida's economy. And how do we do that? We do that by linking our resources for our federal, state, and local government. We conduct seminars and workshops, and we create relationships with the community and programs outlined by the SBA. Next slide. So a couple of statistics from Hurricane Ian. I'm sure we remember that as well. One of the most devastating hurricanes ever to hit Florida. Unfortunately, 144 people lost their lives, and so many were left stranded on flooded islands, massive power outages, no cell or internet services for weeks, and $12.6 billion in insured losses. Next slide. So what is the business continuity plan, and why do you need one? Well, we definitely want to have a plan in place. I really enjoyed listening to everyone prior to this presentation as to making sure your employees have a plan, and then the business obviously has to have that plan. So it can be complex, it can be simple. Only 30% of businesses currently have a plan. Roughly 40 to 60% never reopen after a disaster, and 90% that do not reopen after 5 days ultimately they just can't exist. Next slide. So creating your plan, you want to identify your threats, analyze the impact of those threats to your business, create a strategy to address the impact, perform a drill or rehearsal to test it out, and work with an SBDC consultant to help you develop a strategy for your plan. Next slide. So identify your threats, catastrophic threats. Obviously, natural disaster, fire. I worked with a client that had a fire. It burnt everything in his shop. Unfortunately, the insurance did not come through, so it doesn't have to just be a hurricane. We're talking about all kinds of threats. Disruptive threats, loss of a key employee, damage to your infrastructure, lost information, cybersecurity obviously is a big one. Strategic threats, the economic disaster legislation, changing consumer preferences and tastes. So there's all kinds of threats that are out there. Next slide. So analyze your impact. How would the threats that you've identified affect your business? Your financial impact, that's probably one of the biggest ones. Your physical impact, if you have an inability to operate, your operational impact, and your security impact. Next slide. So create your strategy. So do you have a documented plan which outlines who, what, where, when, and how? So how everything will be managed, what resources are needed, where in the aftermath, how information will be disseminated, how media relations and community relations will be handled, have a medical response plan, and drills should be done based on the plan to make sure, test it out, make sure that it works properly. Next slide. So what is your plan for communication? Have a clear plan for how you will disseminate the communication. If members of the media show up, everyone should know who they can talk to, and they should have only one person that gives out the information. If cell service is out, do you have other methods to reach your people? Next slide. So after creating your plan, collect your important documents, share your plan with relevant stakeholders, put your plan on a cloud, and have information stored on a USB drive as a backup with your important documentation. Next slide. So share your plan, most importantly with your employees so that they know exactly what they're going to be doing. Your insurance agent, if that's something that you are comfortable doing, your banker, and other relevant stakeholders. Update your plan every year to make sure that it remains relevant, and evaluate your plan for future improvements and update accordingly. Next slide. And I think that's all the slides.
Yes, that was your last slide.
Okay. Okay, so I wanted to just tell you quickly, we had a slide and I didn't get my picture and all my information on there, but I want to tell you that we are planning hopefully a workshop in partnership with the EDO to help business clients with a more precise plan. Also, if any business client needs help, we are here to help them with an individual plan. They can contact the EDO, and they can also, for my information, they can also contact me by email. And it's scraig at the sbdc.edu.gov. I'll get that out to you.
Thanks so much, Susan. We really appreciate it. And wow, what a wonderful opportunity it is for this community and our businesses and their employees to hear from not only the state, but regional partners and local partners here, all here to support them in the time of need the most during a natural disaster or situation where it is out of their control. I really, really appreciate your valuable information that you shared today. Now we'll move on to our question and answer session. Please continue to submit your questions in the chat and we'll address as many as we can. Christy, do you have some questions that you've seen?
Yeah, I see Dan has a question. Dan, did you put that in the chat? Let's see here.
Go ahead and read it.
See it in here yet. Hold on one second. Ken, yes, I can put Susan's email in the chat, no problem. While we wait for Dan's question to come through on the chat, I did have a question myself about the most common business mistakes that have been made. And I don't know if Steve or Kim would be the best one to answer that. what have you guys seen as like the common things that as a business owner that could be like, oh, I want to make sure I avoid that mistake?
Well, one thing I think bears mentioning, and I should have said it during the my piece there, the Florida Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan. There are certain requirements for it. In other words, it's not just having a small business of 2 to 100 employees, but there is a minimum credit score of 600, which is not that high. But a lot of small businesses, they start out with modest means, and sometimes they may not have that. So I think it's important to put out to local businesses that as soon as they can, obviously, if they're business minded, they're going to do their level best to get that credit score up so that they can have more cost effective credit for themselves. But the sooner they can get above that threshold, the better. Because unfortunately, if they don't meet that benchmark, they're not eligible for the bridge loan. Now, exceptions have been made in the past, but to rely on an exception is probably not a good strategy. So encouraging businesses to fortify their resources or their credit as quickly as they can, I think would be a big help, because we unfortunately we did have a number of people that didn't meet that mark, and obviously they were impacted. I believe it was mentioned by someone else that a lot of small businesses that get impacted by storms never come back, and having a program like the bridge loan would enable them to come back, but they have to be eligible for it. So that's one thing I think the businesses and would be well served to take under advisement, and just general preparation and being caught flat-footed. Being in the state of Florida, it's surprising that that true statement that was said, that so many people act surprised when a storm's in the neighborhood. And if you live in the state of Florida, your head's got to be on a swivel during hurricane season. So just general awareness, I think, would be something worth mentioning.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate that. Kim, did you want to piggyback on that?
I just want to add a couple of things for that. One, just for the emergency bridge loan during Helene and Milton, because they were back to back, we did extend that loan time up to 2 years interest free, and we did drop the credit score. But like Steve said, that's not normal. But I would say for a small business is to make sure 100% that you have all your paperwork available. Even if it's not the originals, make a copy, put it in the folder, leave it at somebody else's house, put it in your car. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of people when they were coming to, our business resource centers. And I know that the two SBDC and Career Source people can kind of back us up. If you happen to lose your driver's license, DOT will pull that file and give you a new one. But when you don't have a copy of your tax returns, which is important for many things, not just for Florida Commerce, it's really difficult for us to verify that for you. And then we're waiting on the IRS, and that could be weeks. So I just implore for people to make sure that you, like in the minimum, have a copy of all of your business documentation when the business started. Take pictures. People tend to forget what the square footage of it is. So write all those things down, even if it's just handwritten, so that you can refer back to that when that time comes, because obviously any kind of devastation is going to leave everybody a little bit cloudy, and you may not remember that it was 5,000 square feet and put on your paper that it's 2,000 square feet, and that could make a huge difference when it comes to the end. So I just wanted to throw that out really fast.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. And then Ken had another question, and maybe Patrick, you might have a answer for this one. What other options are there when cell towers are down for communications? Is his other question.
Well, there's always a number of options. There are some satellite options for individuals who want to make that investment, especially for businesses that you just like cell phones, they will provide satellite access. Same for Starlink. You can have internet access through that means. Natural disasters on the ground level aren't going to impact the satellites, so those are available. But when it comes to us disseminating information widespread, we have instituted since Ian, where we did see the cell coverage dramatically impacted, what's called information hubs. So we get information out there to the residents in what I call an analog format, just in the format of printed pieces of paper with as much information as we could jam on there regarding the disaster resources that are available after disasters. And those information hubs, we locate those at our record centers and libraries in the areas of the county that are impacted. So if a resident can safely go to a library or rec center and they don't have internet access or cellular service, they can at least at that point get the bare minimum of information that's available out there. Where are the locations of our points of distribution, what disaster recovery center or multi-agency recovery center is open, and what the location is. So those are the methods we use, but communications is first and foremost always impacted, unfortunately, during disasters. So it's something to keep in mind. There are some nonprofits like the American Red Cross that can help with reunification through their program after a disaster, where you can mark yourself safe, essentially, so that family members outside the area can know that you're okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Kim had a comment here I want to share with y'all that the Inglewood Chamber was able to work with the governor's office to get Starlink services for many of their business members at no charge for a short-term fix until they were back up and running. So that's good to know. Thank you, Kim, for sharing that. All right, any other questions? We're down to our last couple of minutes. Kay, do you want to wrap us up?
Sure. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us and for your thoughtful questions. We hope you found today's webinar informative and helpful. If you need additional information or resources, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We have a lot of resources here and a lot of partners right here in Charlotte County to help you. Have a great afternoon, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you,
and this
everybody.
will be posted online for rewatch and access to resources. So it'll be on our website. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you, everybody.
Nice to see you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.